Hello, and welcome to the Live Wisely Stoicism channel, your go-to place for Stoic wisdom. Here, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you'll find powerful and practical reflections to transform your life and achieve serenity amidst chaos. If you want to live with more purpose and clarity, hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content. Let's embark on this journey of self-discovery and growth together. Have you ever noticed how life sometimes feels like an endless marathon, leaving you breathless and unmotivated to keep going? Interestingly, many of the things that wear us down and drain our energy are actually completely avoidable. I'm talking about those life lessons that, once learned, make you rethink everything. After all, what's the point of carrying unnecessary weight when you could be moving forward light and unburdened? This is where Stoic philosophy comes in. In today's video, we'll explore this ancient wisdom that invites us to focus on what truly matters and let go of what doesn't. Get ready to leave behind these 10 things that drain your energy daily, some of which you might not even realize were impacting you. What you're about to discover could be a real game changer, and trust me, you won't be the same after this. But before we proceed, think about this. If we don't have time to rest, it's because we're wasting the time we do have. Just as every moment in this video was chosen with care, every second you spend here could be the key to a significant transformation in your life. If you find value in our videos, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on opportunities like this one. Let's get started. First, negative people. Have you ever felt like your life is a black and white movie where you're the only character in color, and everyone else is just there to add a touch of gray? If so, it's very likely that you're surrounded by negative people. Negative people. Those beings who seem to have a PhD in ruining good vibes. But before you sink into self-pity, let's analyze the situation and explore how to prevent these negative energies from draining your vitality, like a sponge soaking up melancholy. First, let's be clear, negative people are not like ketchup that you can easily wipe away with a simple touch. They're more like mold in a dark corner of the house, persistent and hard to eliminate. Imagine your energy is a battery, and these people are thieves who come with a hook to steal it every time you meet them. Negative people have a special talent for turning any situation into a catastrophe, inviting you to their pity parties and showcasing their collection of complaints. If someone greets you with a "how's life?" and you're about to hear a dissertation on how terrible everything is, it might be a good idea to cut the conversation short. It's not about becoming a hermit, but about preserving your mental peace. A technique inspired by Stoic philosophy is to create mental barriers. The Stoics believed in the importance of controlling our own reactions. Imagine your mind as an impregnable fortress and others' complaints and negativity as the noise of an army of barbarians that can't breach your walls. Whenever someone starts bombarding you with complaints, practice a mental strategy. Take a deep breath, smile confidently, and move on. Another strategy is to maintain a prudent distance. You don't have to eliminate these people from your life, but you can reduce the time you spend with them. Instead of accepting an invitation for an afternoon of toxic conversations, plan an activity that fills you with energy. Swap the coffee with a chronic complainer for a walk outdoors or an afternoon of reading. Your mind and body will thank you. The secret to keeping your energy intact is to be selective about the people you surround yourself with. Don't turn into a hermit, but recognize that your time and energy are valuable resources. Choose wisely where you invest them. And if you have to deal with someone negative, do it with the same attitude you'd use to read a self-help book in a language you don't understand, without letting it affect you too much. You can't control others' emotional weather, but you can decide how it affects you. Keep your internal fortress strong, and you'll see how your life fills with color instead of gray, as Kung Fu would say. It's easier to stay at peace when you decide that others' chaos doesn't have to be your own. Second, perfectionism. Have you ever found yourself correcting a text you've already revised a million times? Perfectionism is a kind of ritual that seems to make sense at the moment, but in the end, you're left with a slightly improved version of something that was already pretty good. The culprit? Perfectionism. This two-headed monster not only steals your time but also your energy and peace of mind. Let's see how to keep it from devouring you. First, reflect on perfectionism. If you're like most people, you probably believe that doing everything perfectly is the key to success. But if you think about it, perfectionism is a bit like being on a hamster wheel. You keep running without really getting anywhere. Stoic philosophy, which suggests focusing on what we can control and dedicating ourselves to what we can truly change, might be the perfect antidote to the modern poison of perfectionism. The problem with perfectionism is that you're never really satisfied with anything. It's like trying to fill a bucket with holes. No matter how much you try, there always seems to be something more that could have been done. This mindset not only wears you out, but also prevents you from appreciating the process and the real progress you've made. Instead of chasing perfection, why not focus on doing things the best you can and then move on to the next task? Perfectionism is like an annoying friend who insists you need to work harder to make things perfect, but is actually just stealing your time and energy. A trick to combat perfectionism is to set clear limits for your tasks. Imagine you're painting a wall. Instead of spending hours adjusting the color or smoothing every detail with millimetric precision, set a specific time to finish the job. For example, if you decide you have 1 hour to paint, once that time is up, consider it a job well done. The wall may not be perfect, but at least now you can see the rest of the room instead of getting lost in the small part that remained unpainted. Another approach is to use the concept of good enough instead of perfect. Do your best, but remember that perfection is an illusion. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot change. Applying this mindset to your projects and tasks can help you break free from the perfectionism trap. Additionally, consider the impact of perfectionism on your well-being. Imagine you're a glass of water. Each obsession is like spilling a little water out of the glass. Eventually, you'll be empty. Instead of allowing perfectionism to drain you, seek to balance your time and energy, dedicating yourself to what's important rather than to what will never be completely perfect. Perfectionism is a trap that only robs you of your energy and happiness. Embracing the concept of good enough and limiting the time dedicated to specific tasks can be liberating. Remember, it's not about doing everything perfectly, but about doing your best and moving on. As Epictetus said, perfection is the enemy of the good. Accept good enough and move forward. 3. Clutter. Have you ever looked around and thought you live in controlled chaos? I'm referring to that moment when you realize that the pile of papers on your desk could have created a new ecosystem. Yes, I'm talking about clutter, and no, I'm not referring to your teenage bedroom, but to the chaos that, for some reason, we decide to maintain in adulthood as if it were a kind of personal decoration. Let's start by talking about that feeling of being trapped in the middle of a hurricane. You wake up in the morning ready to conquer the world, and suddenly, you're faced with a pile of dirty laundry that you need to navigate around to get to the coffee maker. And so the day begins. Your energy drains in a daily battle against clutter. It's as if your environment were a minefield that, instead of exploding, slowly exhausts you. Clutter is a silent thief of energy. Imagine your life as a stream of fresh, free-flowing water. Now imagine that clutter is a pile of rocks in the riverbed. Instead of flowing freely, you find yourself stuck and blocked. Every object out of place, every pile of papers, every piece of clothing thrown on the floor is a rock that impedes your flow. According to Stoic philosophy, external order can reflect a state of inner peace. If your environment is in chaos, it's likely that your mind is too. So how do you solve this problem? Before we become a kind of exhibit on how not to live, the answer lies in simplifying. I know this might sound as exciting as doing yoga on a bed of nails, but there are ways to make the process less painful. Here's a suggestion: the 3-box method. Set aside 1 box for what you want to keep, another for what needs to be donated or sold, and a third for what simply needs to be thrown away. Take time to do this in every corner of your life, do it in parts if necessary, and remember, the goal is not just to get rid of what you don't need, but to reclaim your energy. Here's an even subtler tip: keep only the essentials in view. Minimalism isn't just a passing trend, it's a way to keep your mind free of distractions. By having fewer things around, you ensure that each object in your life has a clear and defined purpose. Every time you keep only the essentials, your mind can focus on what truly matters. The conclusion is simple: clutter isn't just an enemy of your physical space, but a thief of your mental energy. Adopting a more organized and deliberate approach to your life not only simplifies your surroundings, but also lightens your mental load. Don't let chaos dominate you. If you keep an organized environment, you'll also maintain a clear and focused mind. As Marion Rogers wisely said, an orderly environment not only clarifies space but also thought. So the next time you feel trapped in the whirlwind of clutter, remember that the power to change is in your hands. You just need to take the first step, perhaps starting with that mountain of clothes. Good luck. 4. Comparing yourself to others. Have you ever reflected on how much time and energy you waste comparing yourself to others? If at any point you felt that life is unfair because it seems like others have everything under control while you can barely keep your head above water, know that you're not alone. The trap of comparing yourself to others is a real energy thief, and if left unchecked, it can drain you of every last drop of vitality. Imagine you're in an obstacle race, but instead of focusing on moving forward, you spend all your time watching the runner next to you. While they advance, you remain stagnant, not because you're slower, but because you're too busy comparing your pace with theirs. This is a surefire strategy to end up exhausted and frustrated, and in the end, the race doesn't even matter to you. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes essential. This approach, although ancient, is more relevant than ever. The Stoics teach that we should focus our energy on what is within our control. When you compare yourself to others, you're wasting energy on something that's entirely out of your reach, like trying to control the weather instead of preparing an umbrella. It's a waste of time and energy. So, how do you free yourself from this trap? First, recognize that life is not a competition. Each person has their own path and their own obstacles. Comparing yourself to others is like looking at a broken mirror that only reflects the parts that make you feel bad. Instead, focus on your own progress. Celebrate your small victories and acknowledge your areas for improvement. This approach will not only bring more satisfaction, but will also allow you to move forward more effectively. A useful technique is to set personal goals based on your previous performance rather than on what others are doing. For example, if you're looking to advance your career, compare this year's results to last year's, instead of comparing yourself to that colleague who always seems to be one step ahead. This kind of comparison allows you to see the real impact of your efforts and motivates you to keep going. Another strategy is to practice gratitude. Take a few minutes each day to reflect on what you've already achieved and what you're grateful for. Gratitude shifts the focus from what you lack to what you already have, which can help maintain a healthier perspective. If you concentrate on the positive aspects of your life, it will be easier to stop worrying about what others have or do. Comparing yourself to others is an endless source of exhaustion and disillusionment. Instead of letting this practice drain your energy, choose to focus on your own path and celebrate your progress. Remember that every step you take is an advancement, regardless of how other people's steps might seem. Comparing yourself is like trying to fill a bottomless cup. It will never be full, and you will always feel empty. So, stop looking around and start looking ahead. Your energy is far too valuable to be wasted on useless comparisons. Make every moment count for you. 5. Excessive worry. Have you ever noticed how excessive worry can turn into a sort of involuntary hobby? That activity you engage in so often that you end up forgetting to enjoy the present. Imagine your mind is like a garden, and instead of vibrant, healthy flowers, what grows are weeds. Each worry is like one of those weeds, consuming all the resources and choking any chance of happy thoughts growing. Sound familiar? Excessive worry is like an extreme sport. You don't need to exert much physical effort, but the emotional wear is immense. Those thoughts that circle your mind at night, the what if this happens, or what if that goes wrong, are like little stones in your shoes. Although small, they make every step uncomfortable. And the curious thing is that instead of taking them out, you often keep walking with them, convinced that this is part of your destiny. Imagine standing in front of a screen that continuously displays all your potential problems. It's as if your mind were a 24-hour news channel, but instead of talking about global events, it's dedicated only to announcing impending personal disasters. Stoic philosophy suggests that we should focus our energy on what we can control and let go of what is beyond our hands. For example, instead of worrying about the possibility of your presentation being a disaster, concentrate on preparing it as best as possible. You can't control whether it will rain on the day of the presentation, but you can ensure that it's well organized. An efficient technique to avoid the wear of worrying is the 5-minute rule. Dedicate just 5 minutes of your day to thinking about your worries. Put it in your schedule as if it were an important meeting, but after that time, move on to something else. It's impressive how your perspective can change when you limit the time spent thinking about what might go wrong. Remember that most of the time, what we fear isn't as bad as we imagine. Additionally, it's vital to find activities that recharge you and help keep your mind focused on something positive. You can meditate, exercise, or simply read a good book. These moments of relaxation act like a balm for the mind, helping to neutralize the wear caused by worries. Another effective strategy is to write down your worries. It may seem simple, but externalizing your thoughts and putting them on paper helps you see them more clearly and objectively. Often, what seemed like a mountain in your mind turns into a mere hill when placed on paper. Excessive worry is a silent thief that steals your energy and your joy of living. Stoic philosophy reminds us that worry doesn't solve problems. it only consumes our vitality. By limiting the time you spend worrying and focusing on activities that revitalize you, you can regain control of your well-being. So the next time you find yourself stuck in the cycle of worries, remember that you have the power to change the mental channel and give your mind the rest it deserves. As Mario Alonso Puig said, worry is like a wheel that spins without stopping. The more you look at it, the less it advances. 6. Monotony. Monotony. The charming spectacle where every day seems so identical that you wonder if you'll ever escape this labyrinth of endless routine. If you've ever felt like the protagonist of a looping movie where the only plot is surviving another day, know that you're not alone. Let's talk a little about how monotony can wear you down, and more importantly, how you can prevent it from draining your vital energy. Life, in its flattest version, is like a coffee machine that only serves decaf. At first, this might seem like an interesting curiosity, but soon you realize you're living in an energy limbo. Monotony isn't just the lack of variety. It's a kind of emotional suction that robs you of your enthusiasm and creativity, leaving you with a half-empty cup of routine. How does this jewel of routine manifest? Imagine you wake up at 7 a.m., shower with the same soap as always, wear the same clothes you've been rotating for months, and go to work, where you perform exactly the same tasks every day. If all this sounds familiar, you're dancing to the rhythm of monotony. Congratulations, you're part of the exclusive club of daily routines that drain your energy. But don't worry, there are ways to break this cycle and kick monotony to the curb. First, start by varying your habits. If your breakfast is always toast with jam, why not try a smoothie or even an international breakfast? Changing small details in your routine can be the first step towards bringing a touch of freshness to your life. Another strategy is to diversify your activities. If you spend most of your day in front of a screen, try introducing some physical or creative activity. Going for a walk in a park, learning to play an instrument, or trying out a new recipe can be fantastic ways to revitalize your daily life. If you're fortunate enough to choose your projects at work, opt for those that challenge you and push you out of your comfort zone. Don't forget that Stoic philosophy also offers valuable insights in these cases. According to the Stoics, what matters is not what happens to us but how we respond to it. If monotony captures you, it's up to you to choose how to face it. You can let it drain you, or you can use it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Monotony is like a silent thief that steals your vitality without you realizing it. But just like any thief, you can take steps to avoid it. Change your routines, seek new experiences, and adopt a proactive stance. Don't let monotony turn you into a passive spectator of your own life. At the end of the day, remember that you can be the director of your film, not just the spectator of a predictable plot. Life doesn't have to be an endless loop of the same. You have the power to write the script. So, dare to change the scenery and bring life to your routine. As Dali once said, activity is the only escape that brings back the color. 7. Toxic relationships. Have you ever felt like a secondary character in an endless drama? I'm talking about those relationships that feel more like an unending battle, leaving you exhausted, as if you were running a marathon in slow motion. The worst part is that, often, you don't even realize you're trapped in this emotional torture. Let's talk about toxic relationships, those entanglements that drain your energy and leave you staring into the void, feeling a mix of exhaustion and resignation. Imagine you're at a party, and suddenly, that famous energy thief appears. This type of person can be a partner, a friend, or even a colleague, who has a special talent for turning your days into endless nightmares. Everything in this person's behavior screams drama, and you, as the unwilling lead actor, always end up in the role of the victim. It's like being stuck in a cycle where your efforts to please this person are as effective as trying to fill a bottomless well with a bucket of water. But how do you identify these energy thieves? Easy. They are always around, ready to absorb your vitality as if you were a rechargeable battery. Their tools are constant criticism, emotional manipulation, and endless drama. And then comes the question, why continue investing time and emotions in something that only drains you? Stoic philosophy offers a useful clue here. Focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot. The Stoics teach that by concentrating our energy on our own peace of mind and detaching from what is beyond our control, we can conserve our energy. How to escape this spiral of wear and tear? First, set boundaries. It's not about being cruel, but about protecting yourself. If you're dealing with someone who constantly drags you into their chaos, you're not obligated to remain in that emotional whirlwind. Make it clear what you're willing to accept and what you're not. It's like having a shield in battle. It protects you from attacks that cannot be avoided. Secondly, learn to say no. Often, saying yes to everything is just a way to avoid conflicts, but this only perpetuates the cycle of exhaustion. Saying no is not only an act of self-preservation, but also an affirmation of your autonomy and well-being. It's like stepping out of the shadow and walking towards the light of your own peace of mind. Surrounding yourself with people who add to your life, rather than subtract from it, is essential. Being with people who support you and value your time is like having a field of flowers instead of a barren desert. Nurture positive relationships, and you'll see your energy flourish rather than wither. Toxic relationships are like black holes that suck all your energy. Identify them, set boundaries, learn to say no, and fill your life with people who support you. Life is too short to be wasted on unnecessary dramas. Remember, true freedom lies in the ability to choose with whom to share your valuable energy. So take the reins and start writing your own script, where you're the hero and not the victim. As Seneca said, avoiding what wears you out isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. 8. Self-criticism. Have you ever wondered why you feel drained after spending an afternoon alone? No, you're not stuck in a cycle of personal curse. It's self-criticism, that annoying voice that never stops talking. And here's the trick, it often robs more energy than you imagine, without charging you anything except your peace. Self-criticism is like that uninvited guest at a party. It shows up uncalled and settles on the couch without asking for permission. At first, you might even think it's helpful. After all, who doesn't need a little criticism to improve? But soon this criticism turns into a constant flow of "you're not good enough," and "you should have done it differently." It's as if your mind has a self-imposed curse to sabotage you at every step. So, how to escape this cycle? The Stoics, those philosophers who seem to have life under control, might have an idea. According to them, the key lies in separating what we can control from what we cannot. Imagine you're on a boat, and the sea is calm, but suddenly a storm begins. What's the point of trying to control the rain? None, right? Instead, you can adjust the sails and keep navigating. Self-criticism is like the rain on your boat. You can't control it, but you can decide how to react to it. First, identify whether your self-criticism is based on facts or just perceptions. Often, you punish yourself for mistakes that aren't even real but are simply minor deviations from what you expected. If you made a mistake, reflect on it and learn from the experience. But if you're merely punishing yourself for not being perfect, it might be time to rethink your expectations. Remember, perfectionism is the annoying cousin of self-criticism, always present to make you feel like you're never enough. Another strategy is to replace self-criticism with self-compassion. Imagine you're talking to a friend who made a mistake. Would you say, "You're a total failure," or something more understanding? You would certainly choose the latter. So, treat yourself with the same kindness. Remember, self-compassion isn't a sign of weakness, it's a smart way to care for your mental well-being. Finally, consider meditation or mindfulness practice. These techniques can help you observe your critical thoughts without being swept away by them. It's like having a mental telescope to watch the drama from a distance, rather than being in the middle of the storm. Self-criticism is a force that can wear you out more than you realize. Learning to manage it and separate it from your identity is crucial for maintaining your energy and well-being. After all, being your harshest critic doesn't make you a better person, it just leaves you more exhausted. So the next time you find yourself immersed in a sea of internal criticism, remember that you can adjust the sails of your boat and sail with a calmer mind. Keep this in mind, if you punish yourself for your mistakes, at least ensure you've learned to clean up the mess you left behind. 9. Overload of responsibilities. Have you ever felt like a piece of freshly grated ginger in the middle of the afternoon? It's not that your morning coffee has lost its effect or that Monday has stolen your soul. The explanation might be much simpler and at the same time, much more annoying. You're carrying a mountain of responsibilities that aren't even yours. It's nothing new, right? The overload of responsibilities is the modern way of making you feel like you're slowly disintegrating while trying to smile with the kindness of a zombie. Let's break down the problem. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? "Sure, I can do that," or "Don't worry, I'll take care of it," are phrases that sound like music to your ears until you realize you're running a marathon of tasks with a pair of flip-flops and a milkshake in hand. It's as if your life were an action movie where the protagonist, namely you, forgot the script and is stuck in an endless scene of chaos. The overload of responsibilities is not just a logistical challenge, it's an emotional torture. Your mind is occupied with an endless list of tasks, and your body is so tired that you could fall asleep the moment you sit down. It's like having an avalanche in your schedule and not finding a shelter in sight. Now, instead of resigning yourself to this life of chronic stress, you could try something different. This is where Stoic philosophy comes in. The Stoics, those ancient sages who preferred to think more and complain less, teach us that we can control our reactions, but not always the chaos around us. If life gives you lemons, instead of making lemonade for everyone, why not consider making lemonade just for yourself? Try delegating. Delegating is not a strategy to dump your responsibilities on others, but rather to share the load fairly. If you have coworkers, family, or friends, you can distribute tasks instead of carrying them all alone. Imagine you're organizing a party and decide to do everything: buy, decorate, cook. What a lonely party, right? But if you invite your friends to contribute, the load becomes lighter, and everyone enjoys the result. See? Life is much better when you're not alone in the disaster. Another strategy is to learn to say no. While it may sound like a superpower reserved for the chosen ones, saying no is actually a skill that anyone can develop. It's like when a small child learns to walk. At first, they stumble, but then it becomes natural. Saying no is an act of self-care, not a lack of generosity. Your time and energy are limited, and if you don't set clear boundaries, someone else will do it for you. The overload of responsibilities is an invisible enemy that consumes your energy and leaves you exhausted. Adopting Stoic philosophy can help you put things in perspective and manage your tasks more healthily. Delegating, learning to say no, and setting clear boundaries are effective strategies for regaining your balance. Don't let responsibilities devour you. Remember that, in the grand scheme of things, your well-being is a priority. As a wise Stoic once said, you can't fill a cup that's already full. Take some time to empty yours, or it will end up overflowing. 10. Not accepting the reality of things. In your daily life, there are things that wear you out faster than an old battery, and many of them stem from your persistent refusal to accept reality. Yes, that's right. You might think that life is a series of unfortunate events where you, a brave warrior of existence, face challenges worthy of an epic movie. But do you really need to wear yourself out so much trying to change what is unchangeable? Let's reflect on this. Imagine you wake up one morning, look in the mirror, and realize that your hair isn't the way it should be. Sure, this might seem like a first-world tragedy, but is it really worth losing energy over? This is where the wise counsel of the Stoics comes in, that ancient philosophy suggesting that you accept what you cannot change with the same serenity with which you accept a morning coffee. The Stoics don't tell you to become an emotionless marble statue, but to focus your efforts on what you can actually control. To put this into perspective, think about traffic congestion. You can spend hours in your car cursing all the drivers around you, but the reality is that the road will remain jammed, and you have no control over it. Instead of letting this frustration wear you down, why not use that time to listen to an audiobook or an interesting podcast? Accepting that you can't change the traffic is the first step toward greater well-being. Now, not all is lost, because there are things you can change. If you find that your social interactions are leaving you exhausted, it might be time to reassess with whom you're spending your time. I'm not suggesting you abandon your friends, but it might be helpful to learn to set healthy boundaries. If someone is becoming a constant source of exhaustion, it might be time to adjust that relationship. Accepting reality instead of fighting against it not only helps you maintain balance, but also frees you to invest your energy in what truly matters. The Stoics teach us that our energy is one of our greatest riches. If you waste it on lost battles, you'll be left with no strength for the victories within your reach. Instead of wearing yourself out in unnecessary resistance, accept what you cannot change with a sigh of resignation and direct your attention to what is in your hands. At the end of the day, your mental peace and well-being will thank you. As Marcus Aurelius said, accepting the unchangeable is not surrender, it's simply recognizing the wisdom in tranquility. Here's an extra: not dedicating time to yourself. Have you ever felt like a juggler, trying to keep several balls in the air but realizing that they're all falling around you? If so, you might be stuck in an exhausting game that brings no benefit. One of the main reasons we feel overwhelmed is the lack of time dedicated to ourselves. Yes, that precious time that always seems to slip away amid packed schedules of meetings, tasks, and social commitments. Sound familiar? Think of your life as a glass of water. Every time you attend to an external demand, a work call, a dinner with friends, an urgent task, it's like adding a bit of sand to that glass. At first, the sand mixes with the water, and everything seems fine. But over time, as more sand is added, the water starts to overflow. This glass symbolizes your energy and well-being. If you don't reserve time for yourself, the water, your well-being, will simply overflow. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that you isolate yourself from the world like a hermit, although that might seem tempting at times. The point is to find ways to balance your responsibilities with the need for personal time. The ancient Stoics, for example, valued introspection and self-care as essential components of a balanced life. They knew that if you don't take care of yourself, you'll have little to offer others. So how can you prevent your glass from overflowing? First, establish clear boundaries. If you make it clear that your personal time is non-negotiable, others will learn to respect it. Have you ever been in a never-ending meeting that was going nowhere? Instead of remaining a passive spectator, propose more efficient alternatives or simply set a time limit. It's like putting a lid on the glass to prevent it from overflowing. Secondly, take an inventory of your activities. Not everything is equally important or urgent. Ask yourself which activities truly add value to your life and which ones merely drain your energy. Sometimes, the best way to manage time is by eliminating what is unnecessary. Make a list of your tasks and remove those that don't contribute to your personal goals. Think of it as cleaning the sand out of the glass of water to see what really matters. Finally, set aside time for activities that recharge your energy, whether it's reading a book, exercising, or simply enjoying a quiet coffee. These moments are essential for renewing your energy. In other words, prioritize these small rituals that make you feel good. Otherwise, you risk becoming like a battery that is never fully recharged, always on the verge of running out. Don't let external demands dominate your life to the point where you forget the time you need for yourself. If you don't maintain balance, you may end up becoming an exhausted shadow of what you could be. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember that the best gift you can give yourself is a bit of time for yourself. Remember, in a world that never stops, personal time is the last luxury you should allow yourself. Congratulations on making it this far and finishing the video. This shows that you're committed to improving yourself as a person. If you enjoyed the video, leave your comment. If you don't know what to comment, just write gratitude, so I know you watched until the end. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and join us. The channel is full of teachings applicable to our daily lives. Here are 2 videos full of Stoic wisdom so you can keep learning. See you next time.